This is your moment, your time to shine, your comeback. You're ready for the next step in your career, and you want an education employers respect. So you're not just going back to school, you're coming back with Purdue Global. Backed by Purdue University, one of the nation's most respected public universities, Purdue Global is built for people who bring their life experience into the online classroom. Purdue Global, Purdue's online university for working adults. Start your comeback today at purdueglobal.edu.
Jon Stewart is back at The Daily Show, and he's bringing his signature wit and insight straight to your ears with The Daily Show Ears Edition podcast. Dive into Jon's unique take on the biggest topics in politics, entertainment, sports, and more. Joined by the sharp voices of the show's correspondents and contributors. And with extended interviews and exclusive weekly headline roundups, this podcast gives you content you won't find anywhere else. Ready to laugh and stay informed? Listen on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, I'm Jay Shetty, and my latest interview is with Mel Robbins. Work has been seen as the number one cause of stress. How can the let them theory help?
As you notice the stress come up, Jay, you're simply going to say, let them. You have no idea right now how much time and energy is being wasted because of other people's behavior. It's like a death by 1,000 cuts.
Listen to On Purpose with Jay Shetty on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
You are cordially invited to the hottest party in professional sports. I'm Tisha Allen, former golf professional, and the host of Welcome to the Party, your newest obsession about the wonderful world that is women's golf. Featuring interviews with top players on tour, tips to help improve your swing, and the craziest stories to come out of your friendly neighborhood country club. Welcome to the Party with Tisha Allen is an iHeart Women's Sports production in partnership with Deep Blue Sports and Entertainment. Listen to Welcome to the Party, that's PARTEE, on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
The OGs of Uncensored Motherhood are back and badder than ever.
I'm Erica.
And I'm Mila.
And we're the hosts of the Good Moms, Bad Choices podcast, brought to you by the Black Effect Podcast Network every Wednesday.
Yeah, we're moms, but not your mommy.
Historically, men talk too much.
And women have quietly listened.
And all that stops here.
If you like witty women, then this is your tribe. Listen to the Good Moms, Bad Choices podcast
every Wednesday
on the Black Effect Podcast Network, the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcast, or wherever you go to find your podcast.
Hi, everyone. It's Amanda Rieger Green. The 2025 Astrology Numerology Guidebook is out. It is a month-by-month living roadmap and compass for navigating the profound and impactful energies of 2025. It's a year like no other. This is not merely a compilation of forecasts. It is a sacred invitation to walk consciously through the cycles of your life, feeling more armed with clarity, wisdom, grace, intentionality, so you can practically put new ways of living and being into play. It's got crystal recommendations, intentions. I utilize the astrology and the numerology and the codes that they create together. And what it does is it activates a psycho-spiritual awareness where when your psychology and consciousness is in a cohesion with the energy in literal and practical ways with astrological transits, the numerology of the month and the year, and the meaning and the purpose, the strategies, the blind spots, crystal recommendations, journal prompts, all the things. It helps you create traction, create clarity in a meaningful and practical way. I hope you invest in this. Soulpathology.com, $29.99. It also has the opportunity to create discussion and community. And I am proud to be able to offer this and utilize it myself. I hope you will too. Be well, everybody, and make 2025 mythic. It's Amanda Rieger Green. Welcome to Soul Sessions. Today, we're going to talk about some numerology, especially the numerology of 2025 and your personal year numerology. Those two things are important. And when I say they're important to me because I have seen the growth when I utilize that language and the language of numerology and how it interacts with me psychologically on a consciousness level, and also drawing the correlations of the energy and the cycles that I am in. As you all know, because you've been listening, unless you are new to this podcast, I am a numerologist and it is my love language. Years ago, before all of my psychic and intuitive gifts really were online in a very clarified way where I was able to communicate, understand, and utilize them to support people and myself in my own journey, numbers were one of those things that I innately knew, I innately remembered. And I've told this story before and I'll recount it briefly, but I remember exactly where I was. I was driving between Tucson and Phoenix. I was on a business trip and I think it was probably 2006, 2007, I was listening to a radio show on Sirius XM, and Glennis McCants, who is a very famous and successful numerologist, she's excellent, she's witty, she's got a ton of moxie. She was being interviewed and they had callers calling in, giving their birthdays, and she was giving live numerology readings. And I'm driving and I had never correlated numbers, energies, frequencies. I don't think I even knew what quote unquote numerology was as a practice, as an ancient science, like astrology. And I remember somebody would call in and they'd give her their birth date. And before she would answer, I knew what she was going to say, the attributes, the frequencies, the energies of the numbers. I'd do the math in my head and be like, oh, they're a 6 attitude or they're an 8 life path. And I had never heard the words 8 attitude number, 6 life path, whatever it was. But I remember driving and I had to pull over to the side of the road because it was almost like I was looking around. Is anybody seeing this? What is happening to me right now? How do I know what she's going to say? And it wasn't so much the intuition, like telepathy of what she was going to say. It was that I knew the frequencies of the numbers. And it wasn't perfect, spot on. But when you talk about the energy of the 6, I knew that there was a nurturing and a wisdom and a caregiver quality. And when you talked about the 8, there was a boldness and a leadership and a drive, and it was connected with money and empowerment. I knew those things. And it was so strange. And it would be years before I recognized that language and that gift was something that I was able to utilize for myself and with clients. So numbers and frequencies, numbers are everywhere. And when we understand the frequencies, energies, and vibrations with the character attributes and traits of numbers, we can start to discern our roadmap or become more aware. And I tell you what, more than anything, working with things like numerology, astrology, any kind of metaphysical or esoteric ancient wisdom and knowledge or blueprint, it harnesses intuition, it activates clarity, presence, awareness, and it does something cognizantly and psycho-spiritually where something clicks. And when a frequency clicks or an energy clicks, there is a leveling up of energy, frequency, and all of this plays out practically. So for instance, when you know your personal year in numerology, and then you're aware of the universal year, and I'm going to break this down a little bit, but when you know those energies, that in and of itself is gold. And of course, it can break down month over month. There's a multitude of ways where you can really drill down and get clear. Just like in astrology, when you have your natal astrology and you look at your transit and you know, oh, this new moon is happening in my 2nd house. The focus is money, the material world, my sense of self-worth versus, no, it's happening in my 5th house of spontaneity, creative self-expression, passion. When you know those things, like that's the astrology, and you also, numerology has those same components. So when I know those things, it's like I can drill down and I can clarify my experience and I can put it into play practically. So can you. We can do that. And I genuinely enjoy it. I love seeing the connections and the codes and things click for myself and for other people. And it's really quite magical. It creates all these synchronicities. And I hope this is a tool or a resource that you get into this year, because this year there's tremendous spiritual, energetic up leveling, and to know the way to navigate that, because it's a little counterintuitive and it's going to take rolling up your sleeves and some work. But it's the kind of work that is that fulfilling light bulb moment, electric, satisfying energy where when something clicks, it's like, oh, this makes total sense. I get it. Oh, I understand why this was so difficult and I had to learn it the hard way. Wow, all of my pain has meaning, or all of my joy and my talent. I get why I have these talents and why it was so hard or easy for me to get to this place. So that's just a little bit of an overview. So first of all, let's talk about the 9-year and do a little bit of a recap. I did a podcast back in October where I talked about the energy of the 9 and I went into depth about it. But the energy of the 9, if you look at the single digit numbers, and they are your roadmap. 1 through 9 are the base frequencies, just like the signs of the zodiac with their attributes and their shadow aspects. The numbers have those same qualities, different, but same. It's the same kind of blueprint. And the numbers are sequential. There's lesson over lesson. With the energy of the 9, it's different. It's got these special mathematical properties to it. But literally, if the energy of the 1 is the beginning, the number 1, starting out on a new path, pioneering a new journey, the 9 is the ending, the completion, the closure, the capstone, the top of the mountain. You've summited Everest. So, of course, there's shoot, what's next? I've summited Everest, or shoot, how do I get down from here? There's a lot that happens when there's closure, and the 9 is a year of closure, culmination, completion, but it's also a level up. And in order to level up, and here's the paradox of the 9, leveling up, raising your frequency, growing, really embodying an innate wisdom through experience, there's a lot of letting go. And the way that I think about that practically is if you are scaling a business, when you are scaling and growing, of course, you're integrating new systems, people, business plans, things like that. But in order to do that, you've also got to clean house or get rid of the processes that don't work or the systems that are outdated. So when you level up, scale a business, you're also letting go and cleaning house. So there's this growth that happens and there is this cleaning that happens, or culling. So it's almost like you're walking out into waves of water, and the waves are coming in and you're walking out. So it can feel sometimes overwhelming, exhausting, like you're pushing against the current. And what you're learning is to actually go with the flow, to ride the waves in, but still keep moving out. So it's mental, it's psychic and energetic, it's emotional, it's physical. The 9 really asks us to summon all that we've got and what we've learned in this epicycle. And what I mean by an epicycle is over the course of the last 9 years. The last time we were in a 9 universal year in numerology was 2016. So 2017 was a 1 year. So from 2017 through 2025, that is a 9-year cycle. And for me, or when I'm working with clients, working people one-on-one, talking to them, I always go back to the last 9 year and look from 2016 to 2017 and see what was going on, what was happening in that time frame, what was the reorientation, what loss, what surrender, what was changing in their life, what turning point was happening for them, literally, spiritually, physically, job-wise, death-wise, with a family member. Multiple things can be happening. And then what did 2017 look like? So if you want to logically think back, you think back to 2016, 2017, and look at that time frame in terms of what you've walked through, your experiences, how you've grown, what you learned, what you didn't learn, what was super challenging, what was incredible and amazing, what rites of passages, life cycles have you traversed, looking at it that way. And this is dealing with the universal energies. When we drill down to the personal energy, it's another story. But I want to finish up in talking about the 9. I've said this before, but if you're new or if you don't remember this, remember quite literally that when you sum total the numbers 1 through 8, when you add 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6 plus 7 plus 8, that equals 36. 3 plus 6 equals 9. So one of the attributes of the energy of the 9, it carries all the frequencies and lessons literally of the numbers that precede it. So it's a lot. And the cool thing about that, and my numerology guidebook, I am so excited about it, and I am appreciative of the feedback I'm getting. We put it in a platform called Thinkific, and the cool thing about it is it's like a numerology course. It's called a guidebook, but literally it is separated month over month with astrology and numerology, and it breaks down the numerology month over month, and it also correlates the astrology and numerology. So the Astro Numero code, and there's crystal recommendations and intentions and journal prompts. So you have lunations like new moons, but you're also looking at the numerology of that month with that new moon or that full moon or the eclipse or the retrogrades and directs of the planets. And we've got such big stuff this year, as you all know and feel. So I'm so happy because the feedback I'm getting is, wow, this is exceeding my expectations, which lights my fire because it takes a lot of time to do that stuff, y'all. I poured my heart and soul into it, and I had support. Shout out to my assistant, Rachel, for getting it in there and really organizing it. And she was the one that said, Amanda, this is too big of a document. We've got to do it in this platform. I think this will work. And I said, you're on to something. But when you get it, if you've gotten the guidebook or you decide to get it, first of all, you'll enjoy it. You'll learn a lot, but it's very organized and it will help you drill down month over month with the universal energies. And those universal energies are important. And what's also important to understand is our personal energy. So in talking about your personal year in numerology, this is a special year. It's a 9 year. So the 9, again, has special mathematic properties. Why is it a special year in numerology for your personal year? Because your attitude number, and that is the month you were born plus the day you were born reduced to a single digit. So if you were born on 2/8, so February 8th, you are a 1 attitude number. 2 plus 8 equals 10. 1 plus 0 reduces down to 1. So you're a 1 attitude number. And your attitude number in numerology is a bit like your rising sign, your ascendant in astrology. It's how you come across at first glance, how you dawn on people, the personality you take on in your day-to-day interactions, one-to-one with people. It's how people see you when they encounter you out in the world. So it's not your inner life as much as it is your outer persona. So your attitude number is your personal year number this year. That is not always the case. The reason for that is we're in a 9 year, and the way you calculate your personal year is you take your attitude number. So you derive your attitude first. And by the way, if you're listening to this and you're in your car, don't be scribbling stuff out. You can check out the show notes, and I've got blogs for all of this, and it's written out, and it reminds you how to do the math. So you don't have to synthesize this and, do something silly or get in a wreck. Be mindful, people. But that being said, you take your attitude number and you add it to 9, because we're in a universal year of 9. So if you are a 1 attitude number and you add that to 9, 1 plus 9 equals 10. 1 plus 0 equals 1. So you don't even have to do the math this year. Whatever your attitude number is, you do that math, the month you were born plus the day you were born reduced. And that is your personal year this year. Why is that significant? Because whenever we have a personal year or the universal year that syncs up with some of our main numerological blueprint or code, there's an element of growth, mastery, and really delving into that frequency that is a massive part of your psycho-spiritual blueprint, your holographic blueprint, your personality, your soul self, who you are. So all of us are in the personal year that is our attitude number. And for me, it's a little bit wacky because I am a 9 attitude number. I am a 9 life path number. So I'm in a 9 year. I'm always in the flow of the universal year because of my 9 energy. But for me, I'm a 9 attitude, 9 life path. I was born in a 9 year and we're in a 9 year. So it's 9, 9, 9, 9, 9. And I was out to lunch with a friend yesterday and we were talking about numerology, and he said, wait, remind me what you are. And I'm like, 9, 9, 9. And I have other parts of my numerology because there's a lot more than your attitude and your life path. You've got a soul urge number, a birth date number. You have the planes of expression. There are so many things you can delve into. But I said, I'm a 999. And then we were talking and we got our check. And on the top of the check, there was a 9. And he's like, there's the 9. And I was like, of course. And we were laughing about it. And then we went to pay the bill and she brought the bill back. And there was the actual itemized bill, the bill to be signed, and then the extra customer copy. And right there it was 999. And the two of us were laughing hysterically. And then he went into the bathroom and he came out of the bathroom. He said, Amanda, you're not going to believe this. And I said, what? And he said, in the bathroom, whatever was written on the brand of the trash can it was called 9 stars. So we were just loving the synchronicities of it because it was showing up everywhere for us. And that's the thing I love about numbers. When you're looking for the signs, they show up. So whatever your personal year is and your attitude is, look for that number. Whether it's a 1 or a 7, look for your 7s this year. Look for your 1s this year. Follow those numbers. Use those as a mile marker. Use those as, hey, I'm on the right path. Hey, I'm paying attention. Something is lining up. So look for the number codes, but look for your number codes this year because first of all, it's fun, but it creates this engagement. The more synchronicities you're open to and you look for, the more happen. I had somebody reach out recently, a friend, and she was talking about mediumship and receiving messages from someone on the other side and really not knowing whether she was receiving the messages or not, or that she couldn't trust the messages. And my number one thing around signs, synchronicities, intuition, messages, whether they're from your guides, your loved ones, your higher self, the universe, the more that we question, if we immediately say, that's not real, that didn't happen, or, I'm not really sure what that means. Like if you get into that consternation or cynicism or debunking, when you go directly to that, it's actually kind of shutting down that gateway. So if anything, in terms of practicing your discernment around your intuition, signs, synchronicities, go immediately into, I can't believe that just happened. Wow. And You don't even have to know the perfect meaning or definition of or message that's coming through. It's more the energy of the aha, wow moment that actually raises your frequency and will open you up to the clarity around the message that's coming through, whether it's immediate in that moment or it unfolds throughout the next day or week, whatever it may be. So it's loosening your grip from this detail-oriented need to know, and surrendering, which is a theme of the energy of the 9, is really letting go, showing up, looking, doing your part, and then relinquishing the control and allowing in divine higher frequencies. So let's talk about your personal year and a little bit of what that means.
Jon Stewart is back at The Daily Show, and he's bringing his signature wit and insight straight to your ears with The Daily Show Ears Edition podcast. Dive into Jon's unique take on the biggest topics in politics, entertainment, sports, and more. Joined by the sharp voices of the show's correspondents and contributors. And with extended interviews and exclusive weekly headline roundups, this podcast gives you content you won't find anywhere else. Ready to laugh and stay informed? Listen on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
The OGs of Uncensored Motherhood are back and badder than ever.
I'm Erica.
And I'm Mila.
And we're the hosts of the Good Moms Bad Choices podcast, brought to you by the Black Effect Podcast Network every Wednesday. Historically, men talk too much.
And women have quietly listened.
And all that stops here.
If you like witty women, then this is your tribe.
With guests like Corinne Steffens.
I've never seen so many women protect predatory men. And then Me Too happened. And then everybody else want to get pissed off because the white said it was okay.
Problem.
My oldest daughter, her first day in 9th grade, and I called to ask how I was doing. She was like, "Oh, Dad, all they was doing was talking about your thing in class. I ruined my baby's first day of high school."
And Slumflower.
What turns me on is when a man sends me money. Like, I feel the moisture between my legs when a man sends me money. I'm like, oh my God, it's go time. You actually sent it?
Listen to the Good Moms Bad Choices podcast
every Wednesday
on the Black Effect Podcast Network, the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you go to find your podcast.
I'm Tisha Allen, former golf professional and the host of Welcome to the Party, your newest obsession about the wonderful world that is women's golf, featuring interviews with top players on tour like LPGA superstar Angel Yin.
I really just sat myself down at the end of 2022 and I was like, look, either we make it or we quit.
Expert tips to help improve your swing, and the craziest stories to come out of your friendly neighborhood country club.
The drinks were flowing, twerking all over the place, vaping, they're shotgunning.
Women's golf is a wild ride, full of big personalities, remarkable athleticism, fierce competition, and a generation of women hell-bent on shanking that glass ceiling. Welcome to the Party with Tisha Allen is an iHeart Women's Sports production in partnership with Deep Blue Sports and Entertainment. Listen to Welcome to the Party, that's PARTEE, on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcast, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Presented by Capital One, founding partner of iHeart Women's Sports.
How serious is youth vaping? Irreversible lung damage serious. 1 in 10 kids vape serious, which warrants a serious conversation from a serious parental figure like yourself. Not the seriously know-it-all sports dad or the seriously smart podcaster. It requires a serious conversation that is best had by you. No, seriously, the best person to talk to your child about vaping is you. To start the conversation, visit talkaboutvaping.org. Brought to you by the American Lung Association and the Ad Council.
Hey you guys, I'm Catherine Legg. I'm a racing driver who's literally driven everything with 4 wheels across the planet. And I've got a new podcast. It's called Throttle Therapy. This season, I'm gearing up to make history, competing in some of the world's most notorious racing events, starting at the Indy 500. Join me as I travel from racetrack to racetrack in my quest to continue a memorable career in racing. I'm also going to bring you inside stories with legends of sports, new faces from the next generation of auto racing, and conversations with the people who've supported me throughout my career. We'll be getting into everything from karting to NASCAR, even Formula One. Whether you dream about being a pro athlete or an astronaut, we're talking about what it takes to make it. Listen to Throttle Therapy with Catherine Legg an iHeart Women's Sports production in partnership with Deep Blue Sports and Entertainment. You can find us on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Presented by Elf Beauty, founding partner of iHeart Women's Sports.
Hi, everyone. It's Amanda Rieger Green. I hope you have gotten your copy of the Astrology Numerology Guidebook. It is a month-over-month living roadmap to help you navigate 2025 utilizing astrology, numerology, crystals, journal prompts, and it is interactive. It will help you make sense of your personal experience, the universal experience, in incredible ways. We are in an unprecedented year, so we need unprecedented tools, and this guidebook is just that. I hope you take the time to invest and check it out and utilize it for yourself so you can make 2025 a mythic, earth-shattering year full of love, happiness, joy, abundance, and paradigm shifts. You are so worth it. Check it out, soulpathology.com. So let's talk about your personal year and a little bit of what that means. In the show notes, I've got 9 different blogs, and they go through each of the personal years 1 through 9. And they're very succinct blogs that just give you the attributes, the energy, the overview, and what to look out for. But I want to run through the numbers to remind you. If you're in a 1 personal year, congratulations, you're out of your 9 year. Like, that's a beautiful thing, because the 8 year, the 9 year, the couple of years prior usually are pretty heavy. There's a lot of energy around that you're learning lessons, you're growing, you're going through a growth spurt. But one thing I will say about it is it takes a little bit of time for the 1 to catch, like the energy and that momentum to catch. But the 1 is about new beginnings. It is about your individuality, and it is about taking responsibility, ownership, and being the leader of your own life, really utilizing your mighty I am presence and knowing your power, your strength is really within your resourcefulness, your attitude, your perspective, and your ability to jump into life and to try it out. It's forging ahead, pioneering a new path. And it is about the expression of your individuality. What within you has shifted over the course of the last 9 years that you are beginning to express and to exhibit out in the world, and are your feet keeping up with your mind and your heart? Meaning the 1 is a year of action, taking steps, moving in new directions. And the cool thing about the 1, which is very similar to Aries energy, it's cardinal energy, it's fire starter energy, it's very primal, is the 1 really will pioneer something, and if it messes up, it just is like, okay, it redirects, and it doesn't shy away. It's brave, it's bold, it's courageous. Now, those are all the positive attributes of the 1. The 1 has a lot of shadow components, and watch out for this. Especially, the 1 can get very selfish, self-centered, I, me, what is my plan, what are my goals, what am I doing? And it can get very self-centered and forget to either ask for help, receive help, support other people, be helpful, partner up, or really connect with others, because its focus can get narrow and its focus can get very ego-based in that form. And one thing about being in a 1 personal year with the blanket or umbrella of the 9 universal year, that is a karmic energy, because the 9 is more humanitarian and heart-centered. So the 1 has bold leadership qualities, and the 9 has kind of an innate wisdom to it, or more innate qualities of leadership. So the 1 and the 9 are tricky, and the 9 says, be of service. Look at the bigger picture. What am I giving back to the whole? And the 1 is like, I'm doing what I'm doing. I'm going to go forward. I'm going to achieve my goals. But when the 1 and the 9 come together at their highest, it is an incredible combination of energy because the 1 moves forward bravely, courageously, and boldly, and the 9 infuses this bigger story of giving back, being part of the whole, inclusion. And when the 1 rises up and masters and transforms, it's about oneness, not I, me. It's the interconnection of everything. And if there is a year when you're in a personal cycle and you're in a 1, for the 9 universal year to be happening, it is powerful. It's transformative. It will not play when you mess up. You may mess up big time, but when you break through your glass ceiling, and there's transcendence, and there is beauty that happens internally, externally, and in your life. So that's the 1. The 2 is so different. All the numbers, they kind of, they build on each other. If the 1 is about the individual, the 2 is about partnership. And when you go from a 1 year to a 2 year, so if you've been in a 1 year and you're moving into a 2 year, oh my gosh, at first you're going to think you're doing something wrong, or something's not happening fast enough, or you're exhausted, or you just don't have the energy for, or you're impatient, because you've gone from all of this energy in the last couple of years with the energy, the last 3 years, really, 8, 9, and 1, being in that cycle, to a 2 year, which slows you the heck down. It's a year of rebalancing, getting back to a new center, a higher center. It's almost like your compass is orienting back to its true north after about 3 years. So it is a little bit disconcerting at times, reorienting and confusing. But the 2 year ultimately, yes, it is about balance, flow, harmony, and of course, relationships. You are learning through other people. But more than that, it's coming back in to the peace within your soul, because the 2 ultimately is about peace and love. And peace or love and love are no small things, right? We crave love, we crave peace. So something within you is rebalancing you, and usually it's doing it through your relationships, which means you are solidifying and recognizing the relationships in your life that are healthy, supportive, reciprocal, true, and you are recognizing the relationships in your life that are old, outdated, have outlived their purpose, misaligned. And I'll tell you what, you are continually learning through the other in a 2 year, meaning when someone shows up and they say to you, oh my gosh, I love your outfit today. Somebody is seeing something in you, and I don't care if it's superficial or they're saying, wow, I love how you communicated that and got that done for me. So whether it's superficial or it's something you showed up and accomplished for somebody, but when somebody gives you a compliment, this is the year to practice receiving rather than just saying, oh, no problem. Oh yeah, I've had this outfit forever. If you blow it off, just like that cynicism I was talking about with synchronicity and intuition, the more that you blow it off, the more you're putting up like a shield wall to your ability for your ability to receive. So when someone communicates something to you, if it's lovely and appreciative, say, wow, thank you, or, oh, I appreciate that, or I'm glad you noticed I got my hair cut. I'm glad you like it. Whatever the compliment is. Now, on the converse side of that, whatever the feedback is, oh, you didn't do a good job with that, or, I don't really want to go hang out with you because all you do is complain. So get ready, because the world is showing up to show you what you're working on. And again, it's not about you doing anything right or wrong. It's about you recentering, because you're becoming more fine-tuned and you're coming back into, does this relationship feel peaceful? Do I feel peaceful? And also, what does love and harmony look like for you? So it's a year where romance can flourish or romance can break up. And when you've got the energy of the 2 and the 9 combo, relationships can break up. There will be some relationship drama, but it's not that anything is being taken away from you that you so desperately need. It's what is being culled or detoxed because you've outgrown it, or it's keeping you stuck and stagnant. So the 2-year can be slow and painful at times, but it is such a paramount year. And it's very, very important. The 3 personal year, I love the combination of the 3 and the 9, because the 9 energy in general has a tremendous amount of artistry and creativity, but it waxes more serious. And the 3-year is not about seriousness. This 3-year is about community, connection, charisma, play, creativity. It's about boldly expressing yourself. It's about saying yes way too much and feeling overwhelmed, overcommitting and underperforming. The 3 is scattered. The 3 is emotional. It's dramatic. It's messy. I mean, the 3 is basically exhausting and amazing. It's exhilarating, exhausting, amazing. And when you combine the 3 and the 9, it can be a very emotionally taxing year, but an emotionally rewarding year, because there's a lot of creative and emotional intelligence that is leveling up in the year. And you're doing that through being out in the world. The 3 is an extroverted energy. The 9 waxes more towards the hermit. The 9 can be introspective, and literally in the major arcana of the tarot, which there's numerology all over that, and it's all very symbolic. The 9th card in the major arcana is the hermit. And the 9 has a hermit quality to it, where it's very introspective and deep. So when you combine the 3 and the 9, there's magic, because the 3 encourages being out in the world, being on stage. So it pulls the 9 out of its shell. But with the energy of the 3, probably the 3 is about communication. And here's the kicker with communication. It is about listening more than you speak. And the 3 loves to speak and communicate. The 3 can just talk your freaking ear off. But when you see a very well-developed 3, they're more discerning. They listen more than they speak. And when they speak, people shut up and listen, because they are articulate and they are magnetic. There's a magnetism to the communication of the 3, but when it learns to really listen and hear people, and also hear intuitive messages. Usually when people have heavy 3s in their numerology, I find them to be very claircognizant, like me. And why I say that is because they get their intuitive hits by being out in the world, out amongst people. Like when they problem solve creatively in connection or community with other people. It's like, oh, this is how we do it. This is how we put the business plan together. Now, do they follow through with the business plan? Probably not. They're going to need some help. They're going to need their community, but they get their downloads and insights when they are creatively expressing themselves amongst people and community. So if you're in a 3-year, you're going to feel that hermit energy of the 9 that's introspective, and then you're going to feel your soul saying, I think I will go do this. Okay, I'll say yes to this. I normally would say no. Let me go. And here's the deal. Say yes to things. And if you go somewhere or you say yes to something and you don't enjoy yourself, you either don't have to do it again, or you get to say no the next time. You get to say no, or you get to leave early. So using your maturity with the 3, because the 3 can be kind of immature because it's the creative child. It's fun. And when I say immaturity, there's no shade on that. That's part of the joie de vivre of the 3. But play, have fun, do things that make you laugh your ass off this year. That will give you your juice and your motivation in a multitude of ways. All right, the 4. I love the 4 and the 9 combo, but A lot of 4s don't love that combo with the 9 because it makes an already intense energy more intense. Surprise, surprise. I'm a 999. It's an intense energy, period. And I'm learning to be less intense, easier, more playful. And I have truly become that with myself over the years. But the energy of the 4 and the 9 is basically a get her done kind of year, and it's going to be an entire year of building. Basically, by the end of the year and into 2026, you'll look back and go, dang, whoa, that was hard work. Wow, whoa. It's that kind of year where in the midst of it, you may feel bored, exhausted, minutia, detail-oriented routines, day-to-day life work and stuff. Because the energy of the 4, if you draw a 4 on your piece of paper, to me, it's like 4 quadrants. It's very linear. It's practical, pragmatic. It likes list. It likes order. It likes a clean process. It's goal-oriented and it's quality-oriented in the way that it says, here's the goal and here's the most practical way to get there. And it's also bossy and controlling, and it can be exhausting because it is literally, when it is in its shadow, it's OCD, control freak to the max, doesn't want to ask for help. And the reason it doesn't want to ask for help is its ego says, well, I don't feel like having to re-explain this to this person, so I may as well just do it myself and get it all done, because if I delegate it and then I have to explain it to them and then they don't do it right, and then I'm going to be upset. I mean, they think they're super analytical. So they play all those tapes and scenarios forward, which actually gets in their way. Because when we're playing those analytical tapes in our head and playing that out, we're writing a program and we're manifesting. So the 4, being able to be present, learn to delegate, let people in, utilize its brilliance and its organization by getting things in order and creating a clear plan of action. But with the 9 says, yes, you show up and you be precise, you be goal-oriented, you build whatever you're building, but include other people. Surrender it to your higher power. The outcomes, where can you relinquish control? So I think if you are in a 4 year in numerology, showing up with your precision and your talents, but really trusting the universe and trusting God to support you through your journey is important. And the 4 also is about cleaning house. It's about streamlining, decluttering, getting rid of anything that is outdated or not serving a purpose. The 4 wants to clear clutter in its life. And when you're relating it to the energy of the 9 universal year, it can be challenging because the 4 wants it to go its way, and it can get very stuck in its focus and its orientation when the universe may be saying, hey, do you really need that? And it may be emotional. It may be something you've been hanging on to, a sweater you've had for years that you just think you're going to wear and you don't. So it can be as superficial as a sweater or a pair of shoes that you've had in your closet for 8 years and haven't worn. Or it can be emotional attachments and where we think we are in control in relationships and people, that sort of thing. So it can be very disconcerting for the 4, but the 4 will grow tremendously through its day-to-day practical approach and then surrendering it to something greater. Next is the 5. The 5 and 9 combination, totally different.
Catch Jon Stewart back in action on The Daily Show and in your ears with The Daily Show Ears Edition podcast. From his hilarious satirical takes on today's politics and entertainment to the unique voices of correspondents and contributors, it's your perfect companion to stay on top of what's happening now. Plus, you'll get special content just for podcast listeners, like in-depth interviews and a roundup of the week's top headlines. Listen on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Tisha Allen, former golf professional and the host of Welcome to the Party, your newest obsession about the wonderful world that is women's golf, featuring interviews with top players on tour like LPGA superstar Angel Yin,
I really just sat myself down at the end of 2022 and I was like, look, either we make it or we quit.
Expert tips to help improve your swing, and the craziest stories to come out of your friendly neighborhood country club.
The drinks were flowing, twerking all over the place, vaping, they're shotgunning.
Women's golf is a wild ride, full of big personalities, remarkable athleticism, fierce competition, and a generation of women hell-bent on shanking that glass ceiling. Welcome to the Party with Tisha Allen is an iHeart Women's Sports production in partnership with Deep Blue Sports and Entertainment. Listen to Welcome to the Party, that's PARTEE, on the iHeart Radio app, Apple Podcast, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Presented by Elf Beauty, founding partner of iHeart Women's Sports.
The OGs of Uncensored Motherhood are back and badder than ever.
I'm Erica.
And I'm Mila.
And we're the hosts of the Good Moms Bad Choices podcast, brought to you by the Black Effect Podcast Network every Wednesday. Historically, men talk too much.
And women have quietly listened.
And all that stops here.
If you like witty women, then this is your tribe.
With guests like Corinne Steffens.
I've never seen so many women protect predatory men. And then Me Too happened. And then everybody else want to get pissed off because the white said it was okay.
Problem.
My oldest daughter, her first day in 9th grade, and I called to ask how I was doing. She was like, "Oh, Dad, all they were doing was talking about your thing in class." I ruined my baby's first day of high school.
And Slumflower.
What turns me on is when a man sends me money. Like, I feel the moisture between my legs when a man sends me money. I'm like, oh my God, it's go time. You actually sent it?
Listen to the Good Moms Bad Choices podcast
every Wednesday
on the Black Effect Podcast Network, the iHeart Radio app, Apple Podcast, or wherever you go to find your podcast.
How serious is youth vaping? Irreversible lung damage serious. 1 in 10 kids vape serious, which warrants a serious conversation from a serious parental figure like yourself. Not the seriously know-it-all sports dad or the seriously smart podcaster. It requires a serious conversation that is best had by you. No, seriously. The best person to talk to your child about vaping is you. To start the conversation, visit talkaboutvaping.org. Brought to you by the American Lung Association and the Ad Council.
Hey you guys, I'm Catherine Legg. I'm a racing driver who's literally driven everything with 4 wheels across the planet. And I've got a new podcast. It's called Throttle Therapy. This season, I'm gearing up to make history, competing in some of the world's most notorious racing events, starting at the Indy 500. Join me as I travel from racetrack to racetrack in my quest to continue a memorable career in racing. I'm also going to bring you inside stories with legends of sports, new faces from the next generation of auto racing, and conversations with the people who've supported me throughout my career. We'll be getting into everything from karting to NASCAR, even Formula One. Whether you dream about being a pro athlete or an astronaut, we're talking about what it takes to make it. Listen to Throttle Therapy with Catherine Legg, an iHeart Women's Sports production in partnership with Deep Blue Sports and Entertainment. You can find us on the iHeart Radio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Presented by Elf Beauty, founding partner of iHeart Women's Sports.
The 5 and 9 combination, totally different than the 4, obviously, because again, things are sequential. The 5 is very dynamic. It's about freedom. It's about changing its mind on a dime. It's about shifting perspectives. It is also about doing in the moment and following its heart's desire, like following the adventure, following the breadcrumbs. And the 5 loves to pave its own path, not dissimilar to the energy of the 1, but the 5 wants the thrill. It seeks adrenaline. It seeks expansion and growth. So guess what? The 5 is a drama queen. When the 5 feels stuck, and if you're in a 5 year, noticing when you're bored or you're stuck. And I'll tell you something about that where there's a trick to it, is if you feel yourself bored or stuck, before you think that that's what it is, ask yourself, is it actually peace? Is it serenity? Is it that everything seems to be okay working out and you're needing a little adrenaline, so you are having a misconception that you're stuck? The 5s trip themselves up. And here's the thing about the 5. The 5s land on their freaking feet. I watch people all the time and collect my data points with people in 5 years and people with heavy 5s in their numerology. And they are the weirdest conundrum There is. It's one of those that I watch with a lot of curiosity around their energy. And I watch them flub up royally, and I watch them succeed like nobody's freaking business. They're like the lottery ticket winners. The fives end up like just excelling, rising to the top. And it's almost like a magical alchemical thing. But when the five is not finishing things out, when it abandons things versus showing up in integrity and really following through, or the motivations are impure, the five tends to be manipulative, secretive, dishonest, and drama seeking when it's in its poorest behavior. So its shadow is dark. I mean, all of the shadows are dark. Like there's no shade in any of that, but its shadow is very secretive, very manipulative, and it's also very self-seeking, and it's blinded by that because what it's learning is to open up its heart and shift its perspective and trust. Because the five wants flexibility and freedom, and the trick with the five is finding flexibility and freedom in the most mundane of tasks. And the five likes adrenaline. It likes big adventure. So mundane can feel boring, but sometimes we know mundane is peaceful. When you mix the 5 and the 9, sometimes there are very rude awakenings because the 5 is dramatic. Not unlike the 3, there's some drama there, and the 5 kind of goes big or goes home, so it can either break through with amazing fortune, luck, opportunity, money, jobs, relationships, whatever it may be, right place, right time energy, or it can fail miserably. And where the 5 gets to work when it comes to the 9 is when it messes up, when it fails, and I'm not saying that any of us fail, but when it falls to its knees, when it fails, when it's like, nothing is working out, this is horrible, I can't believe that all of this is happening. If the 5 will step back and say, what's my side of the street? If I get really honest, because remember the 5 can be dishonest. It can delude itself, and they do it all the time. I watch it with a lot of love, and I laugh, and I'm like, you go on with your bad self, because y'all are magical, and you're also a hot mess. You know, I love to watch 5s, and they can also drive me nuts at times. But if you're in a 5 year and you feel like things are crashing and burning, instead of blaming and pointing fingers and creating more drama and more blame and more self-pity, you step back and you say, how was I involved in this? How did I have a role in this? And how can I boldly take accountability? How can I admit it, take accountability, own it, and totally accept that ownership? And when the 5-9 combo does that, boom, the opportunity comes. Boom, the money comes. Boom, the relationship happens. It's like alchemy. So it's tricky. The 5 is tricky. 5 and 9, super tricky energy and kind of hysterical and amazing all simultaneously. It's a lot of work, and you'll be panting by the end of the year. If you're in a 6 year, the 6 and the 9 doesn't play. It's a whole other level of it doesn't play energy. 6 energy is, if you draw it on your paper, it looks like a pregnant woman. So it is the mother, the nurturer, the wise one. The 6 energy is very much about caregiving, taking care of. A lot of people who have heavy 6s in their numerology, they're nurses, they're doctors, they're in healthcare, they're therapists, they are in some service-oriented profession. The 6 energy is also really freaking great with business a lot of times. They're very business-minded in oversight and management, because they can get into the details, and they're extremely intuitive. The 6 is innately intuitive, and when it uses its intuition, it just intuitively knows how to guide, counsel, direct. But where the 6 falls short and feels depleted is it is giving its time, giving its energy, giving its love, its nurture, its care, its service, its wisdom out to the world, and then it is feeling resentful and depleted and overburdened by all the responsibilities of life. People who have heavy 6s are highly responsible individuals. So are 9s. So the combo of the 6 and the 9, it is challenging because it is emotional, it's internal, and it is a big growth spurt in terms of your wisdom and learning through the experience of how you show up with people and how you can take care of yourself. It is truly about self-care. What do I need? What do I want? How do I prioritize that? And then how do I show up for my family? Then how do I show up for my coworkers? Then how do I show up for my sick relative? And if you're in a 6 year in this 9 universal year, it's challenging. And when I say challenging, there's challenges with all of the numbers, but where it can be the most challenging, because you're already a 6 attitude number, so you're familiar with this energy. But with the 9, it's almost like a reckoning in terms of recognizing that you need help. You need to ask for people for help. You need to be able to get really emotionally honest about what you need. First and foremost, with yourself, with your higher power, with your higher self and guides on like a spiritual level, and then have the courage to say, you know what? I can't get everybody to school and to all these things. I'm going to need to call so-and-so to help me today. Because if I do that, I'm going to be so run down, and then I don't get to get off a little bit early and go run these couple of errands. And that may sound like minutia, but the 6 energy in the 9, it will teach you a couple of things. It creates this kind of wise maturity, and it's through feeling overburdened by the heaviness of life and its responsibilities. Family is a big focus in the energy of the 6. It's intimacy, family, hearth, home. So usually there's things that are on your plate with family dynamics in a 6 year, and with a 6 and a 9 year, there can be responsibilities for family members. You can feel overburdened by that. But with the energy of the 6, and I'm actually going to speak just from personal experience on this, because the last 2 times I have been in 6 personal years, they have been some of the most challenging years for me and most growing, stretching, rewarding years for me, because they have forced me to ask for help and let people in. Let people see my messiness. And the 6 is so good at keeping everything organized, orchestrated, all the plates spinning. But it's like, wow, she's super mom, or he's super dad, or gosh, they work and they do this and they get all this stuff done. But on the inside, they are feeling exhausted, just emotionally wrecked, angry, frustrated, and they're holding it in, and then it blows. So getting ahead of that means, wow, I don't feel like doing that today. And I'm going to say no, and I don't care what anybody thinks. It's starting to like not worry that people are not going to like or love you, and getting so true and so vulnerable, and then also sharing your messiness with people. And the one thing I say about that, because I've learned this through the hard knocks of life, when I share my mess with people, either people can't handle it, they can't hack it, or it's not for them, and that's okay. Or I share my mess with people and they love me more. They love me anyway. It creates endearment. So the beauty of the 6 is intimacy and really knowing who your tribe is, your family, your intimate, who's going to be there for you come hell or high water. Because we already know if you're a 6 attitude, you're going to be there for them, because that's just the like, I'm here, I'm showing up, I'm showing up for you. So with the 9 combination, it forces you almost to level up with your wisdom and your intuition. So it's a beautiful year, and it's so rewarding in terms of knowing yourself better. But I will tell you, if you're tired during this year, like if you are flat out exhausted and your nerves are fried or frayed and your nervous system is a train wreck, that's when you stop and you go take a bath, or you stop and you just breathe for a few minutes if that's the only time that you have. Pause and eat your lunch. Like wherever you can find some breaths and some solitude and some moments for yourself, that will help you recalibrate and move through from a less of a heightened emotional state that is not sustainable. Okay, the 7. If you're in a 7 personal year, I love the 7 and the 9 combo, and it gets intense. It's intense. That's probably why I like it. So not everybody likes it. The 7 is the seeker. It is this intuitive genius, and it's more like an analytical genius. It's always connecting the dots and pulling the cosmic puzzle pieces together. The 7 is introspective. It likes solitude, sound like the 9. Yeah, they're kind of related. The 7 likes its own personal time. It doesn't like needy people, stuff clinging to them. It's like, I want to have my time, my stuff, my time with my book. I want to dive into the data. I want to dive into this book and lose myself in the book and connect the cosmic dots. It's always seeking and probing and searching, and it's genius and it's analytical, and it can feel misunderstood. It can feel highly cynical. People who have heavy 7s in their energy field, when they're going through like a rough patch and they're really struggling and growing and going through a growth spurt, they get super cynical and they kind of become unkind. And when I say unkind, it's more like aloof, because they can be aloof. They're very observant. A 7 doesn't miss a dang thing. It's like it can walk into a room and it is just sensing and seeing and watching, and it's like retrieving data. They are observant. They're looking, they're putting like genius puzzle pieces together in their mind. And so they can feel very misunderstood. Like, I can't explain that to somebody because they're going to think I'm nuts, or they're not going to get it. The 7's really self-righteous in the sense that it's like, yeah, those peons, they aren't going to understand my genius. So it isolates itself. And one of the things that the 7 is learning, apart from recognizing those aha moments, that seeking and searching, the 7 loves to learn and grow. If it's not learning, it's like it's bored, or it feels like it's not being fed. The 7 loves to grow and learn. And if you're in a 7 year, it may be a year where you decide to go back to school or get a certification, or you're diving deep into the metaphysics and the astrology and the numerology, and it's clicking and it's making sense. But the 7 can get so hungry in its seeking and searching that it forgets to be lighthearted, connect, and share its research with other people. So getting out of its shell and saying, okay, who can I tell about what I'm learning? Who has time to sit down with me? Who jives with me? Who gets me? Who gets my quirky, weird frequency and energy? And when do I feel seen? Because the 7 sees beyond. Like I said, there's an intuitive, innate genius to the 7 that's a little bit maddening. But when it finds someone or a group of people where it really feels a part of and seen, it is such a frequency that is both stabilizing and magnifying at the same time. And we need 7 energy to be able to connect those cosmic dots and raise our frequency. So if you're in a 7 year, and especially combined with the 9, it is imperative to not take yourself too seriously, to recognize when you're being judgmental or aloof or standoffish, or, just taking everybody's inventory around you, just listening to that voice in your head, because it's writing a program. But being able to be lighthearted, be silly, play games, do lighthearted stuff, and know that that lighthearted stuff is as valuable as diving deep into something and committing and learning, because you need both right and left hemispheres of the brain. So the play and the lightheartedness and the silliness is important to balance out the intelligence that's coming through. It's a real frequency up level. And with the 9, it will trick you into thinking that you're not in the right place, that you're not doing enough. I'm not doing enough. I'm not doing enough fast enough. Why aren't the answers coming? Why aren't people seeing me? Why aren't they recognizing me? It'll trick you into a real sense of self-doubt, even though there's tremendous intelligence with the 7. So listening to the cynic in your own head is imperative, and saying, I'm right where I was supposed to be. Angels are guiding me, my guides, my higher self. There's something divinely orchestrated here.
Jon Stewart is back at The Daily Show, and he's bringing his signature wit and insight straight to your ears with The Daily Show Ears Edition podcast. Dive into Jon's unique take on the biggest topics in politics, entertainment, sports, and more. Joined by the sharp voices of the show's correspondents and contributors. And with extended interviews and exclusive weekly headline roundups, this podcast gives you content you won't find anywhere else. Ready to laugh and stay informed? Listen on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Tisha Allen, former golf professional and the host of Welcome to the Party, your newest obsession about the wonderful world that is women's golf, featuring interviews with top players on tour like LPGA superstar Angel Yin.
I really just sat myself down at the end of 2022 and I was like, look, either we make it or we quit.
Expert tips to help improve your swing, and the craziest stories to come out of your friendly neighborhood country club.
The drinks were flowing, twerking all over the place, vaping, they're shotgunning.
Women's golf is a wild ride, full of big personalities, remarkable athleticism, fierce competition, and a generation of women hell-bent on shanking that glass ceiling. Welcome to the Party with Tisha Allen is an iHeart Women's Sports production in partnership with Deep Blue Sports and Entertainment. Listen to Welcome to the Party, that's Partee, on the iHeart Radio app, Apple Podcast, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Presented by Elf Beauty, founding partner of iHeart Women's Sports.
How serious is youth vaping? Irreversible lung damage serious, 1 in 10 kids vape serious, which warrants a serious conversation from a serious parental figure like yourself. Not the seriously know-it-all sports dad or the seriously smart podcaster. It requires a serious conversation that is best had by you. No, seriously, the best person to talk to your child about vaping is you. To start the conversation, visit talkaboutvaping.org. Brought to you by the American Lung Association and the Ad Council.
The OGs of Uncensored Motherhood are back and badder than ever.
I'm Erica.
And I'm Mila.
And we're the hosts of the Good Moms Bad Choices podcast, brought to you by the Black Effect Podcast Network every Wednesday. Historically, men talk too much.
And women have quietly listened.
And all that stops here.
If you like witty women, then this is your tribe.
With guests like Corinne Steffens.
I've never seen so many women protect predatory men. And then Me Too happened. And then everybody else want to get pissed off because the white said it was okay.
Problem.
My oldest daughter, her first day in 9th grade, and I called to ask how I was doing. She was like, "Oh, Dad, all they was doing was talking about your thing in class." I ruined my baby's first day of high school.
And Slumflower.
What turns me on is when a man sends me money. Like, I feel the moisture between my legs when a man sends me money. I'm like, oh my God, it's go time. You actually sent it?
Listen to the Good Moms Bad Choices podcast
every Wednesday
on the Black Effect Podcast Network, the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you go to find your podcasts.
Hey you guys, I'm Catherine Legg. I'm a racing driver who's literally driven everything with 4 wheels across the planet. And I've got a new podcast. It's called Throttle Therapy. This season, I'm gearing up to make history, competing in some of the world's most notorious racing events, starting at the Indy 500. Join me as I travel from racetrack to racetrack in my quest to continue a memorable career in racing. I'm also going to bring you inside stories with legends of sports, new faces from the next generation of auto racing, and conversations with the people who've supported me throughout my career. We'll be getting into everything from karting to NASCAR, even Formula One. Whether you dream about being a pro athlete or an astronaut, we're talking about what it takes to make it. Listen to Throttle Therapy with Catherine Legg, an iHeart Women's Sports production in partnership with Deep Blue Sports and Entertainment. You can find us on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Presented by Elf Beauty, founding partner of iHeart Women's Sports.
The 8. When you're in an 8-year, it's a lot. We were in an 8-year last year. 2024 was an 8-year. There's tremendous drive that comes with the 8. And think about it this way. If the 7 is depth and seeking and searching, the 8 is what takes the show on the road. So all the things that you're incorporating and understanding and discerning and figuring out, in your life, in this growth and knowledge quest and seeking, the 8 says, okay, put your money where your mouth is, take your show on the road, like make something happen in the material world. The 8 is the infinity symbol. It is about money. It's the only number that's really on the base frequencies correlated with money and materialism. But it's important as far as our psychology goes, because the 8 is learning through dichotomy and polarity. So anything you experience in an 8 year that feels depressing or depleting or exhaustive or frustrating, what is the opposite of that experience? So if it's exhausting, your soul is saying, hey, you're exhausted by this, because there's an easier way that actually creates more vitality. When do you feel revitalized, uplifted, enthusiastic versus exhausted and depleted? So the 8 really is not unlike the 2 about a reorientation. So after you've gone through all the numbers that come before it, the 7 year, you're being balanced out again, because the 8 is about balance and harmony, similar to the 2, but it's in constant motion. The 8 produces quite a bit in the material world, but it can also go through a massive drought. So on a financial note, the energy of the 8, you can either experience massive abundance materially, financially, or you can experience bankruptcy. It's one or the other, and neither one, to be honest, is like right or wrong. It's the lens that you're learning through, so you can really, truly recognize internal abundance. So I almost think, as annoying as what I'm about to say is, I have done better on a soul level, on a personal level, on a maturity and awareness level, when my resources are sucked dry in an 8 year and I'm having to dig deep for inspiration, clarity, truth, in order to utilize and demonstrate that out in the world and to myself. So it's almost like the more challenging the 8 year is, the more growth there is. And it's not to say that if your 8 year is full of win, empowerment, bam, bam, relish in that and take time to step back and feel fulfilled. Because if it's a lot of bam, bam, achievement, accomplishment, stuff rolling in, we move out of gratitude and get into heavy, heavy materialism. The 8 is also very karmic. And the reason the 8 is karmic, it's like what goes up must come down, what goes around comes around. So if things are positive, saying, wow, something has come together, something has clicked, wow, this is happening because of something greater and bigger and because of my human resources. Giving credit to something higher, because we are in a 9 year. And if you just give yourself credit in the 8 year, you may come out on top financially, but your soul will feel dark. Literally, people with heavy 8s in their numerology, they are leaders, they accomplish, they can go through high highs and low lows materially. But when they get to the finish line, it's like if they have $2 million in their bank account, there's like, well, I don't feel fulfilled, or it's not making me happy. So the 8 is here to round things out and find gratitude and appreciation, and to contribute it to something greater is the connection of the 9. Because the 9 will say, but why do you need to have this money in the bank? What are you going to do with it? Are you going to hoard it all? Or are you going to be philanthropic or give back or be generous, be conscientious and generous? So if you're in an 8 year and you feel like it's test after test, don't shy away from that. I want you to smile at it and smirk and be like, oh, I'm growing. I'm leveling up. Okay, this is painful. This is annoying, but how can I be resourceful? How can I reorient myself quickly? And if there was anything that I saw shift in the energy of the 8 in numerology and the frequencies, because all of the numbers and the energies are shifting. They're shifting in like to a higher octave. I've been noticing that for the last couple of years. But with the 8, The resolve is huge. I'm staying the course and I'm learning. I'm learning through life experience and polarity. And then resiliency, meaning reorient. I'm staying the course, but I keep reorienting, fine-tuning, tweaking. It's almost like the path gets more narrow and more clarified as you go, and feeling the experience of clarity, fulfillment, wholeness through it is where the vitality and enthusiasm will come in. And when you combine it with the 9, the karmic lessons and cycles can feel a little bit more intense, and you can feel like you're not doing enough and you're not doing enough fast enough, or everything is being taken away and it's going to be detrimental. So it can feel moody and extreme. So remember to be lighthearted and not take yourself too seriously. Very similar to the 7, but being able to be resourceful. Who can I ask for help? What can I collaborate, or how can I go within and shift my perspective to recognize where I am worthy, or where I'm growing, or where there is richness, wholeness, abundance, profitability internally, and how is that showing up externally? And then the 9. If you're in a 9 year and it is a 9 year, well, obviously you have a 9 attitude number like me. This is our vibe. We are here for this energy. And I mean, like it or not, it's one of those years where our already intensity and immensity wants us to be more intense. And paradoxically, it's about being lighter. It is really, truly embracing our utopian, humanitarian, philanthropic attitude, heart, bigger picture energy, but being able to do it with ease and grace and a loving heart. The 9 is extremely compassionate, very sensitive, and also wants to leave the world or whatever it touches better than when it showed up. And the 9 fundamentally does that oftentimes because they use their creativity and their magnetism and their charisma. They genuinely want to be generous and give and uplift and inspire, but usually to their own detriment. They don't always feel inspired. They don't always feel uplifted, enthusiastic. So it is imperative. One of the big cornerstones of 9 energy where it trips itself up is it doesn't get into enough gratitude. If it achieves something or accomplishes something, it doesn't sit back and say, wow, that feels good, or gosh, I'm really grateful I have this. And it's funny because the 9 isn't ungrateful. It just doesn't have the ability to always feel the gratitude in its body unless it practices gratitude and appreciation. The 9 is also very discerning. Once it sees something or knows something, it can't unknow it. So it can be relentless and unforgiving. So if there's a hard truth that comes through, like somebody's been unkind or betraying, or you recognize someone in your family's behaviors and you're like, whoa, this does not jive with me. I'm not okay with it. Once you become acutely aware, you cannot become, it's like, well, what has to be done with this? How do we figure it out? How do we clear it up? This isn't my fault. Or what do I need to do about it? It starts to consternate and rattle stuff around in its head. And the practice with the 9 is to truly invite in compassion and gratitude. Whoa, what did this show me? Whoa, what am I learning? Whoa, what am I grateful for? And how can I respond with love, tolerance, and compassion? Because the 9 is learning to let go and let God, suit up, show up, and surrender, to forgive and forget. Nines have minds like elephants. They don't forget a thing. So they may clear out resentments or forgive, but if something pops up, it's like it happened yesterday. And even though you thought you had given it to God or surrendered it or forgiven it, it's like it comes back. And if you're in a 9-year, something is changing in you. You are shifting, you are changing, you are closing out a cycle. And whether it's personally, professionally, spiritually, maturity-wise, it's like something is really shifting and preparing you. So anything that is taken away or leaves your life, it is about a death, a grief, and a growth that is happening, and it is about being true to yourself. Because the 9 is ultimately about high character and integrity. When it is honest and true, it is truly about to thine own self be true, because something in that is divine or higher. And last but not least, if you're in a 9-year, the 9 totally takes itself too seriously. So the 9 has tremendous creativity and like creative genius, magnetism, charisma, but it fails to enthusiastically sometimes attract people to support itself because it's just tired and kind of hermit-like by life, that it just loses, it's like its fuse burns out because it can feel the energy of the collective. So really practicing gratitude, appreciation, and enthusiasm this year. When do you feel enthusiastic, and how are you using your creative self-expression? Those things will be helpful in the 9-year because it's a lot of letting go, a lot of shedding, and a lot of change, but you're hardwired for it. And as you move into 2026, you're going to, first of all, be happy to move out of a 9-year and into a new cycle. But the death process, the snake shedding its skin, has to happen. And I'll say this in closing, in Chinese numerology, in the Lunar New Year, in February, we will be moving from the dragon. We've been in a year of the dragon, which is really interesting that 2024 was an 8-year, energetically bold, empowered, very dynamic in multiple ways. But we're moving into the year of the wood snake. And so think about a snake shedding its skin, and the wood snake is very connected with the earth and alchemy and practicality. So it's a year where we are literally shedding skin, being born again, revitalized. And in order for that to happen, there is growth and grief. So the 9 and any of us out there, remembering to look back at where you've grown, what you've learned, and be able to honor the experiences of the past, whether they be painful or beautiful or both. How did this grow me? How did this affect me? And how is that playing out today? I know I gave everybody a ton of information. There's more information in each of the blogs for your personal year. I encourage you to check that out. And if you don't have the guidebook, you should absolutely get it because it is pretty amazing. And it also is one of those things where you do it at your own pace and you go in. But when you get in that rhythm with just the new and the full moons, that's a lot of times. I can remember early on working with people and creating some spiritual consistency. I'm always like, go for the low-hanging fruit, the new and the full moon. We get a new and a full moon every 2 weeks. And if you journal once every 2 weeks on the new moon and the full moon, and you set intentions about what you're calling in on the new moon, and you're letting go, healing, and shedding on the full moon, coming into new awareness, 2 times a month, you are literally working with the energies, and it's just twice a month. So if anything, the guidebook is giving you this interesting roadmap to see how your personal year is playing and tracking with the universal year, and it'll blow your mind once you start applying it. And you'll have 25 million questions because that's what happens is you start to go deeper and wider. And it's where the brilliance and the magic and the intuitive awareness starts to really cognitively click. And then you feel more in sync, whether things are easy or challenging, you feel oriented in your divine, wise timing. Everyone, be bold this year. Listen to your heart and go within, because it is a big year. There is tremendous transformation happening, and you are important. You are the creator of your reality in confluence with something greater than you, with the divine powers that be. So live in that energy. I encourage everyone to very much get centered in your own empowerment and sovereignty and voice, and commit to growth this year, however that looks for you on a soul level. Be well, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to Soul Sessions. If you've got questions, do not hesitate to reach out. Email us, podcast@soulsessions.me. If you love this podcast and you want to hear more, make sure you're following it, liking and subscribing, and sharing it with other people. Send this energy out. Share it with other people. Remember, you can always get your dose of Soul Sessions. New episodes drop on Wednesdays. You can also follow me on Instagram, TikTok. It's @Soul Pathology, or check out soulpathology.com. I appreciate you and your light. Thanks for listening.
Catch Jon Stewart back in action on The Daily Show and in your ears with The Daily Show Ears Edition podcast. From his hilarious satirical takes on today's politics and entertainment to the unique voices of correspondents and contributors, it's your perfect companion to stay on top of what's happening now. Plus, you'll get special content just for podcast listeners, like in-depth interviews and a roundup of the week's top headlines. Listen on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, I'm Jay Shetty, and my latest interview is with Mel Robbins. Work has been seen as the #1 cause of stress. How can the let them theory help?
As you notice the stress come up, Jay, you're simply going to say, let them. You have no idea right now how much time and energy is being wasted because of other people's behavior. It's like a death by 1,000 cuts.
Listen to On Purpose with Jay Shetty on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
You are cordially invited to the hottest party in professional sports. I'm Tisha Allen, former golf professional, and the host of Welcome to the Party, your newest obsession about the wonderful world that is women's golf. Featuring interviews with top players on tour, tips to help improve your swing, and the craziest stories to come out of your friendly neighborhood country club. Welcome to the Party with Tisha Allen is an iHeart Women's Sports production in partnership with Deep Blue Sports and Entertainment. Listen to Welcome to the Party, that's PARTEE, on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcast, or wherever you get your podcasts.
The OGs of Uncensored Motherhood are back and badder than ever.
I'm Erica.
And I'm Mila.
And we're the hosts of the Good Moms Bad Choices podcast, brought to you by the Black Effect Podcast Network every Wednesday.
Yeah, we're moms, but not your mommy.
Historically, men talk too much.
And women have quietly listened.
And all that stops here.
If you like witty women, then this is your tribe. Listen to the Good Moms Bad Choices podcast
every Wednesday
on the Black Effect Podcast Network, the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcast, or wherever you go to find your podcast.
How serious is youth vaping? Irreversible lung damage serious. 1 in 10 kids vape serious, which warrants a serious conversation from a serious parental figure like yourself. Not the seriously know-it-all sports dad or the seriously smart podcaster. It requires a serious conversation that is best had by you. No, seriously, the best person to talk to your child about vaping is you. To start the conversation, visit talkaboutvaping.org. Brought to you by the American Lung Association and the Ad Council.